Now, because I originally gave this talk in Korea, I will refer to Korea when mentioning culturist implications and suggested culturist policies. But the lesson should be easily transferable over to your nation. Just change the name. Korea is currently welcoming millions of immigrants and has adopted multiculturalism as its official policy. Two big mistakes. Multiculturalists argue for mother tongue maintenance programs and mother tongue as the medium of instruction. UNESCO, a powerful globalist and multiculturalist organization, says every child has a right to education in their mother tongue. In America, our Supreme Court decided that we must teach immigrants in their mother tongue in the 1970s. Now, I refer to America because we've been implementing multicultural policies for 30 to 40 years. We've run the multicultural experiment. So in looking at America, you can see an approximation of what Korea or any country might look like in 30-40 years if it implemented multiculturalist policies starting today. Implementing multicultural mother tongue maintenance programs will create foreign-controlled areas in your nation. To teach classes in the local mother tongue, people who speak the local mother tongue will have to be hired. Koreans, or those who speak the nation's language as a first language, will largely be ineligible for teaching positions in such areas. In California, for example, it's very hard to get a teaching job unless you speak Spanish. This is a policy that largely excludes long-term Americans. This will also apply to government jobs. Under multiculturalism, government procedures happen in multiple languages. In New York's Chinatown, for example, nearly all of the people who work in the post offices and other local government offices speak Chinese. Non-Chinese speakers can't get hired. In areas that are dominated by local mother tongue languages, it will be hard to get elected to office unless you come from the same country as the local majority population, or at least speak their language. In Korea, Jasmine Lee is the first such elected official. She is Filipina. Elected representatives from immigrant communities will not vote for stopping immigration. Thus, control of your borders becomes harder. Thus, multiculturalism will undermine both your sovereignty and your national unity. As mentioned earlier, in America, both political parties are afraid to push for immigration restriction because immigrant voting blocs are large and growing. Having areas that are not controlled by your majority culture can impact your national security. Globalists poo-poo such talk as a joke, but to ignore such potentials is to literally bet your life that war won't happen. I wouldn't be so sure. And furthermore, even without war, nations smell weaknesses. If 15 to 25% of Korea, for example, were made up of non-Korean speakers and Japan's population was solidly Japanese speaking, the Japanese could assume that Korea would be divided in case of war. As such, they would feel more confident in aggressively pushing their confrontational agendas, for example, their claim to Tokto Island. And now for some policy recommendations. Number 1. Reject multiculturalist pressure to teach immigrants in their mother tongue in favor of teaching all in the national language. This is already Korea's current policy, and they should stick with it. As Korea must, your nation must resist UNESCO's and American rights advocates' pressures to adopt a Western model of multiculturalism with its mother tongue maintenance component. Number 2. When immigrants enter your schools, give them intensive language instruction in the national language. This will be good for them, and it will help you counter the negative impact of cultural diversity on your nationhood project. This last policy I'll be explaining is really more of a culturist understanding. As such, it's an important criteria to consider when making culturist policy. So, understand that in regards to the nationhood project, multicultural mother tongue maintenance programs and English teaching are antagonistic. Now, this doesn't apply if English is the language of your country. In such a case, if you teach English, people will be learning the national language. But in a country like Korea, where English is not the national language, teaching English as a second language can be dangerous. Let me explain. If the varied immigrants coming into Korea have a second language in common, it's English. Thus, when Koreans start to learn English, they won't be learning it just as a foreign language, they'll be learning it as a second language, as a way to speak to the people in those immigrant communities. Now, As people in Korea start to learn English, it will become easier for immigrants to get by just speaking English. This will in turn lower the incentive for immigrants to learn Korean. And as many Koreans don't speak English and many immigrants won't speak English, what you'll end up doing is facilitating a drift apart between the Korean and the immigrant communities. Again, this division will push you closer to a situation like India's, where you need a lingua franca like English to survive. A situation like India's where many people cannot understand the president. And a situation like Goa's where language policy is contentious. So, in summary, if everyone in Korea speaks Korean, Koreans can teach English as much as they want and expand their global reach with no damage to their nationhood project. But if Korea becomes, say, 20% non-Korean speaking, teaching more English will diminish Korea's cohesion, economic success, and national security. Knowing this, Korea must teach all its residents to speak Korean so that it can safely teach English without danger. And we must all remember that language teaching is always already political as an integral part of the nationhood project.
Thank you for watching. Please check out my website and my other videos.